What's going on YouTube? This is Brian916. Thanks for tuning in as always. Welcome back to part 3 of the 4.7 Jeep engine repair job that we're doing. As you know from part 1, we found a intake valve that wasn't seated due to valve seat falling out of the cylinder head. Cylinder heads were removed. We inspected them and found both cylinder heads to be having a serious leakage issue on pretty much all of the valves, and it was cheaper for us to just get new cylinder heads, so we did that. And so we're going to get these cylinder heads prepped and to go back on the engine block. So let's get started on prepping these heads. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, since I already got it up like this, just check it for flatness right across. Obviously this thing's rebuilt, of course it's been resurfaced, but you always want to just double check and make sure, because last thing you want to do is have an issue after you get done with the job, so you might as well just double check. Alright, so I can see right off the bat that this cylinder head is pretty flat. There's no way anything will be able to slide through here. There's no reason to get a filler gauge, because no filler gauge is going to fit through this. It's 100% flat, and we'll check it across the top. Flat. Yeah, this thing's true. Alright, so that makes us feel a lot better. So let's flip it over. Always make sure that the valves are below the surface and are inside the combustion chamber before you flip it up and lay it on the surface. So the valves are in, so we won't damage a valve by flipping it up. Let's get this thing flipped up. First thing I like to do is, after I check the straightness of the sealing surface, which has quite a bit to do with whether or not your head job is going to be successful. If it's warped, then obviously it ain't going to seal, because there's space in between the block and the cylinder head. So what I like to do is just double check that the bearing caps are torqued correct, and that they're facing, all the arrows are facing the right way and stuff like that. So just basically double checking the machine shop's work. It's a good idea to do that. I've actually, because I do that, I've caught problems before and saved myself a lot of trouble and sent the head back. So this is going to be, according to Chrysler, it's directly from their repair manual, 100 inch-pounds is where they want these bearing caps. So we'll just go through and verify all of them are at 100. Alright, all the bearing caps is tight. Now I'm feeling warm and fuzzy inside. I know the cam ain't gonna fly out. Next thing I'm gonna do now is, there's a little PCV spout here for the PCV system. I'm gonna go ahead and get that screwed in. This thing here. We put a little bit of thread sealer on it. Put some thread sealer on this. Got it screwed in there. So I didn't take the time to look up a torque spec for this because there's really no reason to just run it in. There's no reason to really torque this tight. Once you start feeling some resistance on it, that's pretty much it. Just snug it a little bit. Alright, so we got that back in. Cap back on my thread sealer. Next thing I'm gonna do is put the spark plugs in. So we'll get the plugs in. So this is the plug that I'm using. It's a copper plug. Here's the part number on it. And if you own this vehicle, a 2002 to, or maybe a 2000 to like maybe 04, I think it's this Jeep with the 4.7. This is actually the factory part number. So this is what came in your Jeep when you first bought it. And you can look under the hood for the gap, and you'll see the part number for the plug to use, which copper plugs are the best plugs anyway. So let me get a spark plug gapper and we'll get these in. All right, so these need to be gapped at 0.40. Looks like they're pre-gapped already. I like to put just a little bit of oil on the threads. Clean motor oil. Nothing crazy. Just a thin little coat. Let them go in nice and smooth. If you live in cold weather, you probably should use NICs, but here in California, it doesn't really get that cold. Some places get cold in California. I ain't gonna say all places. California's a big state. So we'll torque them down. Just snug it up. If anybody wants the torque spec on this, just let me know. Okay. Speaking of weather, just got back from Palm Springs. Went on vacation down there. Escaped this freezing cold weather up here in Sacramento. About 55 degrees in the daytime. About 45 at night. Went down to Palm Springs, about 80 degrees right now down there, so wanted to escape this freezing, frigid weather up here. Okay, so we're gonna get all these plugs in, and after that we'll move on to getting the exhaust on. Alright, so all the plugs are in. I'm gonna flip this around. Take a look. Get this flipped over. Alright, so I'm gonna put the exhaust manifold on. Get us a gasket first. Fresh Victor Reason exhaust gasket. We'll get something to open this up. this on. It's open. Pretty cool gasket, sheet metal on one side, composite material on the other. All right, so let's get this thing started. Just open this other one first. Probably should use some scissors. If this was a head gasket, I'd be opening this a lot different. Careful when opening gasket packages. Can't actually damage the gasket. I've done that before. Had to go right back to the store and get another gasket. Let's just say that wasn't one of my better days. Alright, so we got both gaskets out. Flip this up like so. Let's get us a manifold. I need to figure out which manifold goes where because they're different. Take a look at that. Okay, so they're different. Let me go over to the engine and ascertain which cylinder head gets which manifold. Alright, so this one is the driver's side cylinder head or left side cylinder head, which is the head that I'm working on. So we was able to figure out which side I need to put on here. So let's see here on this gasket, see what we got. Let's flip this around this way. Alright, so here we are, we got a match. Looks like the sheet metal side is going to go facing the cylinder head. Alright, so let's get this bolted up. Let's find some bolts for it. Alright, I'm just going to put a little bit of oil, just a thin coat of some clean oil, nothing crazy, just a dab, just to help it go in. Same thing on both of them, just a little dab, run it around. Alright, let's get this on. Got one started here, one started on this other end, and I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, the bolts that look like this go on the outer edges for the heat shield. Let me double check though before I get in too deep. Let me go get a heat shield, see what's up. Alright, here we are with a heat shield. So let's see where this heat shield went before we get too far along, or where these bolts go in relationship to this heat shield. So yeah, so those bolts go there, the long bolts. All right, so we're on the right track. A little too close, sorry about that. Got a little bit of oil on this. Lubrication is your friend in automotive. Run these in just a bit here by hand. All right. Let's get the rest of these bolts in. Oil on them. I usually don't really use power tools at all when I'm reassembling. I mean, you can. Nothing against it. Just got to be a little more careful. But there's really no rush on this vehicle. The owner of this vehicle, this is just sort of an extra vehicle he leaves at his lake house. And so obviously it's winter time right now, and he doesn't really go to his lake house in the winter. So there's really no rush on this job. And so I've been jumping off of it and getting on other things that's a little more urgent for customers. Order on these, there's really no reason to get crazy. Just use a little quarter, snug them up. Just verify that they're all tight. Alright. Let's get our heat shield on there as well. So if I'm not mistaken, this heat shield only had two nuts on it, two on each side. So what I'm gonna do is go look in my can full of nuts and bolts and see if I can't find us a good one. So I'm gonna run this down and go look and see if I got a replacement fastener I can put on here. so I got lucky and found some nuts that fit on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those on. It's pretty secure without it, but I've let a heat shield go once where it had a few missing nuts on it and made a rattling noise. I ended up having to go back and like re-secure it. So be mindful of that. You can't get a rattle noise if you don't have all your heat shield bolts on. Although this one I don't think would have, but I just like to have all the fasteners on there. Alright, so this one's about torqued down. Alright. So that's all the fasteners. Nice and snug. So this head is done. I'm just gonna go through and look at where the bolts, the head bolts go in, and I'm just gonna make sure there's no burrs in there or no rough spots in there, nothing like that, so that doesn't ruin my torque value. So I'm gonna go in there and do that. Then I'm gonna get some assembly lube on this cam and go ahead and get the bottom surface cleaned up. So what I'll do is just go ahead and run some carb clean on the bottom of this surface, and so we'll get ready to get this installed. So I'm not gonna film the other one. Same process on the other one. We'll get the plugs in, we'll get the exhaust manifold and the heat shield on, and whatever else we need to put on that other side. And this is the way I took it off, so this is the way I'll put it on. Obviously not every vehicle you need to do it that way, but on these you really need to put the exhaust manifolds back on them before you install them, and whatever little things that came off of it you need to put back on. All right, so let's get the other one with all the components on, and then we'll go over to the engine block and start getting this stuff on. All right, so getting ready to drop these heads on, and so I'm just cleaning the surface off real quick. Just hitting it with some brake clean on a rag, and just running through, getting all of any grease left behind, any dirt. I want the sealing surface to be free from dirt and grease as possible. So I just go through, put a little carb clean on a rag, and get it as clean as possible. This is to ensure lasting seal. You never want to put a cylinder head down with grease, dirt, or anything like that on it. You want to drop it on as clean as possible. So, got this one cleaned up. I'm gonna go through with the blow gun and blow any length off that got left behind from this rag. And then I'm gonna go clean the other one up and just drop them on. Now over here on the block, do the same thing. Just gonna put some carb clean or some brake clean on a rag and just wipe around the sealing surface. Get as much dirt off of it as you can. Any grease or anything left behind, you want to get off. I like to put oil in these cylinders before I start rotating the engine while I'm about to put the timing chain on. So what I like to do is basically just get the head on first, and then I'll squirt some oil down in the spark plug hole. That way I don't risk getting any oil around the sealing surface. I want it as free from grease as possible. All right, so at this point, let me go grab a head gasket, slap a head gasket on there, and we'll put our first cylinder head on. Guess we'll just put it on this side. This time I'll pull out my exhaust downpipe plugs. Keep any debris out of the exhaust. All right, so let me grab a head gasket and we'll get the head gasket on real quick. So as you know, we went with the genuine Mopar head gasket on this overhaul. Once I used the D&J head gasket, and I had to take the engine back apart and put another head gasket on there because it only lasted probably 3,000 miles. So I always try to get the best quality, highest quality gasket I can. Felpro, Permatorque, Victor Reason, or of course a genuine. So I'll knit it down in the right spot. Get it down on the down. So got us a nice little head gasket on there. And so what I'm gonna do is get some bolts ready, or at least one bolt ready, so when I get that head on there, I can run it down. So let me go grab a bolt and let me go get the cylinder head. All right, so I got my head bolts. Notice too, on this gasket, I didn't put any like spray, copper spray, or any type of like head gasket helper, I don't know, fluids or whatever. I don't use anything on there. I want the surface to be as clean as possible and as flat as possible. I don't want anything in between the sealing surfaces. And the way I see it is spraying something on there is putting something in between the sealing surface, and we don't want that. But again, I know some people use those copper sprays and they have good success with them. I've always had good success without using them, so I just keep following that trend. So I'm gonna get a head bolt. Got my head bolts here. I got brand new head bolts. However, you don't need to get new head bolts for this job. That's not 100% necessary. Although these heads are torqued with a torque angle procedure, but the manufacturer wants you to just check the bolt out to make sure the bolt's fine. If your head bolts are still good, go ahead and use them. So on the instructions, it says, note the cylinder head bolts are tightened using an angle torque procedure. However, the bolts are not a torque to yield design. So if you are doing this job, if your bolts are fine, you don't need new head bolts. Just take a look at the head bolts and just make sure that the head bolts aren't stretched or damaged. This was called necked, not your head, but your neck. Make sure it's not necked, and you should be good to go. However, I chose to go with new head bolts because I know that someone's been in here and done some work to this engine before, so I just want to get as much new stuff on here as possible and to give the customer the best possible outcome. All right, so let's get this cylinder head put on. All right, let's get this head on.
Alright, put a little bit of oil on this. Get one bolt in there. Nothing crazy, just a little bit. Okay, we'll put another one in the back, and then I'm gonna get my mirror, make sure everything's lined up. Got that one down. Got everything nice and seated. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is just take a mirror and a flashlight and go around the edge. Make sure it's good to go. Let's see. Also on the exhaust downpipe, I went under the vehicle and took it off of the hanger so that the exhaust will hang lower. So the exhaust manifold that's on the cylinder head wouldn't get in the way when trying to get the head on. So let me go grab my inspection mirror and check it all out. Take my inspection mirror and I just check and make sure that it's on the dowel pin. So if you take a look, you can see the metal on the dowel pin. I don't know if the camera is picking that up, but I think it's picking it up. All right, an inspection mirror, and just check around the back like this and make sure the gasket is seated in the back, which we see that it is. And then we can look all around this edge in the valley. It's seated. And we can look right around here in this edge. We see the gasket is seated. So at this point, I'm good. I can get all my bolts in and start torquing them down. All right, I'll go ahead and just put all the bolts in. Drop them all in. Snug them up. almost forgot about these small bolts here. It's got 2 here, and then there's 2 on the inside here. So on the instructions on these, I want you to put some type of thread sealer on it, because if you notice right here, there's a water jacket right here. Let's see. I wonder if I could stick my finger through it so you can see this water jacket right here going up through the cylinder head. Same thing on this side. So they want you to coat these with a little bit of some type of thread sealer. But I bought new bolts for this, and it already comes with some type of sealer on there already, so there's no point in putting thread sealer on top of thread sealer. So we'll just go ahead and get these started by hand. Can fall down into the timing cover area all the way into the oil pan, and that will make for a pretty bad day. So be careful putting that inner bolt in if you're doing this job. You can put one hand in here and one hand at the top to sort of secure it. All right, let me get a 10 millimeter, I believe, run those down, and then I'll grab the torque wrench. Getting back in the swing of things after a nice little vacation. Like I mentioned earlier, went down to Palm Springs, had a nice time. We rented a little vacation home down there. You can rent, you don't necessarily have to stay at a hotel. You got little vacation houses. So we rented a nice little vacation house. Had the family with me. Had a nice time. My brain's still on vacation. All right. So let me find the torque specs for these guys, and the torque sequence. So if you're doing this job, here's the torque sequence. This is for the left side cylinder head, or the right side, but you can still use this for the, yeah, you can still use it for the left side, even though this is the right side. As I said, my brain's still on vacation. So you can see this is the exhaust manifold. So if you were doing the left side, it would be the same thing. 1 is up here where the intake's going to be. 2 is down near the exhaust. 3 up across by the intake, and so forth. So here's the torque pattern and the torque specs on these are, let's see. Step 1, 20 foot-pounds. Step 2, 20 foot-pounds again, but do not loosen the head bolts. So just want to make sure it's seated at 20 foot-pounds. And then step 3, they want you to go over to these aluminum color bolts, these here, go over to those, and I want you to tighten those to 10 foot-pounds. And then you're gonna do step 3, you're gonna tighten 90 degrees in the torque pattern, and then get everything to 90. And then you're gonna come back around again and hit them 90 again. And my memory card ran out of memory. Had to go in there and delete some past stuff. But anyway, you want to come back on the last, come back out here to what they refer to as bolt 13, bolt 12, 13, 11, and 14. These aluminum bolts. At the very end on step 4, you want to come back and tighten those to now 19 foot-pounds, and that's going to be the final torque. So I'll put the torque specs in the description, or I'll just post them across the screen so you can get the torque spec. But here's the torque pattern too. All right, let's torque them. All right, let's get this torque wrench set up. Get it turned on. Right now it's at 120 foot-pounds from the last thing I did. So let's move it down to 20. All right, 20 foot-pounds. Number 1. All right. 2. It's 2. Let's move on to 3. Alright, so let's go back step 2 and verify everything is on the mark. All right, so now we need to get this thing on the angle. At 90 degrees. Okay. Number 3. Second to the last one in the back. Number 9 at the bottom, all the way in the back. Okay. And then 10 is up top here, right up front. All right, I need to torque these down. I may have said inch pounds, but It's actually foot-pounds. So my brain's still on vacation. All right, so 10 foot-pounds. My wrench starts at 12.5. The final step's 20 foot-pounds, so it'll be fine. And it looks like we need to do, let's see, 10. Okay, 11's actually in the inside. So let me grab an extension. I don't know if that'll reach. Grab another extension right here. See if we can get in there. Need another socket. It's too big. All right, here we go. All right, so it's at 13. So that's 11. 12 is out here. It's 12, 13. That went to 14. So the final one on these are like 22. So we're still in range. Now we need to go back and do 90 degrees again on these. So let's do 90 degrees again on those. Degrees. Put our sequence down. And let's mark our bolts again. So this time I'll put a different mark, an X. So I know that's the second pass. Number 1. All right. 2. Okay, 10 right up front. All right, and then these guys right here up front, I'm gonna torque those down. Final on these are 20. So I'm gonna torque those down real quick, and let's drop the other head on. All right, so let's get this other side on, and I'm just gonna take a rag and just make sure it's clean. Try to get as much dirt off of it as I can. All right, drop the gasket on it. And these gaskets can go either way, by the way. Yeah, in terms of, there is no left or right, or obviously you got to put it on this way because of the way it's shaped. Couldn't put it on that way. But you could put it on this way on that side, or this way on this side. It really doesn't matter with these. All right, so we got our gasket on. Let's drop that head on. Make sure this downpipe is low enough. Alright, got it on the dowels. Go and grab me a bolt, grab my inspection mirror, make sure everything is lined up just right, which I know it is. This one went on a lot easier than that one. But let me grab a bolt and get this thing bolted down. All right, let's get our head bolts opened up. Get them oiled up. Get them in there. Came with some instructions. Basically clean out the thread holes in your block. So apply some thread sealer to any bolts that enters a coolant passage, and the washers must be used. And place lubricant under the heads of all the bolts. All right, so that was useful. I'm gonna go through, oil these bolts up. All right, let's just run these down. Got them all seated, got them all ran down, hand tight. Let me grab the torque wrench, torque them down, and keep it moving. All right, step 1, 20 foot-pounds. Two, just below it. Grab a zip tie and tie that up out of the way. And we're greasy. Alright, so that was 20. Now we need to move on to number 3. Alright, now step 2 is to go back and to make sure they're all seated. So we'll just 20. 20. 20. 20. 20. Got them all seated on 20, that's step 1 and 2. Step 3 is to get these aluminum bolts in, so let's get those in. Come on here. Got new ones of these too. You gotta run these down to 10. If you're doing this job, I try to make this video useful. All the information that I'm using is from the off of Identifix, but they have manuals, manufacturer manuals on Identifix, so you could get genuine factory information, and that's what all these specs are and the info is from the Chrysler service manual. Alright, so let's get it bolted down. These get 10 foot-pounds, but I'm just gonna seat them first. You can't screw them in by hand because they got some kind of thread locker / thread sealer compound on them. So you kind of got to run them in with a ratchet. You just want to get it seated and then throw 10 on it. And then after you do the other bolts, then you want to come back and put 20 on it. And you should be good to go. 90, and then another 90, and then 20 on these, and that'll be it for installing the head. So let me grab my torque wrench, throw another 90 on there. 1. Reached 90 pretty quick there. All right, number 2. Better slow down. There we go. Towards the end of the day, ready to go. Let's see, number 3. Alright, so got 90 on all of them, and then we're going to go back, hit them with 90 again, and that should be the final torque for 1 through 10 head bolts, and then we'll come back and torque, actually, you know, we got to get these on 10 right now, 10 foot-pounds, which is probably close to what they're on already, so what we'll do is 10 is fairly easy, just snug it basically, just snug them. Alright, and then go back and do another 90 on those, and then we'll hit these on 20 with the torque wrench, but 10 foot-pounds is like nothing, so basically just run them up. All right, so 90 again, starting with number 1. Two. Three. 8 right up front. 110 right here. All right, so we got those done. All right, and then we'll move over here and get these to 20 foot-pounds. So the final on these, I'll go ahead and torque those down. All right, let's get this zeroed in to 20. It's actually 19 foot-pounds. Alright, so that head is done. What I'm going to do next is go through and put assembly lube on all the cam lobes before I get ready to get the timing chain done. But before I do that, I'm going to raise the vehicle and hook up the exhaust down pipes, because at this stage we got the head is installed with new head gaskets and bolts, spark plugs are in, the exhaust manifold on both sides are on, and so we can hook up the exhaust down pipes at this point, and then next we'll get the timing chain in there. So let's keep moving. YouTube, I'll stop the video right here, otherwise it'll be way too long. Hopefully some of this information in this video is helpful for somebody that's doing this job. Trying to make it somewhat beneficial as well by trying to show torque specs and give some type of technical information if someone's doing this job. Anyway, stay tuned for part 4. This is Brian 916. Hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.